Network Wizkid here, and today we're going to take a look at upgrading Cisco Firepower appliances from 6.5 to 6.6. So this is going to be done using a virtual FMC and also a virtual FTD. Before we get started with the demonstration, I'll just run through a few considerations that you should keep in mind when you're following the process or upgrading your firepower devices. So the first one is to always check the release notes for the version you are upgrading to. So the release notes have some good information in there and will tell you of any open issues, any resolved issues from previous versions, etc, etc. Bug scrubs may be relevant, and the reason I say that is because depending on what you're running in your environment or the purpose of your firewalls, you may encounter issues that will affect your deployment if you upgrade. You know, if there's a bug out there in the wild, or you've not realized that there's a bug that could affect particular features that you're using. So it's always worth engaging with Cisco to carry out a bug scrub if you feel as though that's relevant. Plan a migration window with sufficient time. Now, I think the first part, planning of the migration window, is a given, especially in production environments. But when it comes to sufficient time, it's important to allow enough time to upgrade not only the firepower device, the FTD devices, but also the FMC as well. So depending on your deployment, whether you've got HA or clustered environment, it all depends on how many devices you have in terms of how long it's actually going to take. So just make sure you plan that correctly. I think some of the Cisco documentation has information or guides on how long each appliance takes to upgrade and to come back online, but I think from memory and from experience, I think we average about 45 minutes per device, but that's just thinking off the top of my head and based off my experience. So always make sure you plan a sufficient window to upgrade these devices. Check the health of the appliance, so make sure that disk space is okay, make sure that the memory utilization is okay, make sure there's no process issues going on currently, and you can check all that through the FMC by looking at the monitoring status of each device. Ensure all pending deployments are pushed. Now again, this is an important one. Any pending deployments to any managed devices and the FTD devices, make sure that they've all been deployed and there's no pending deployments. I have seen in the past where there hasn't been, or where there has been pending deployments and an upgrade has been pushed. I have seen issues upgrading. So always ensure all deployments are pushed and there's nothing outstanding, and also there's no other network administrator or firewall administrator that's going to be pushing changes or making changes to devices before an upgrade. Perform backups of firepower devices. So again, I think this one's a given, but sometimes overlooked. So ensure that when you are about to perform these upgrades, make sure you take backups of these firepower devices, so the FMC and the FTDs. Usually production environments, I would expect you to have a backup plan in place, so regular scheduled backups, but sometimes that's not always the case. So do just make sure you check the backups, because the last thing you want is for an upgrade to fail and you cannot restore from a previous state. NTP And the reason I've just put NTP there is because it sometimes, or a lot of the time, overlooked on systems and can cause havoc when doing things such as upgrades. So make sure NTP is in sync. Make sure all your devices are in sync rather with NTP, because if not, I think there is a warning out there where the upgrades can fail. I think I mentioned the last point previously, so checking the disk space of the devices. Make sure there's enough space on there to accommodate the new upgrade. Again, you can do that from the FMC. Check the upgrade path. So in today's demonstration, we'll be upgrading from 6.5 to 6.6. So we're taking it to 6.6.1 really. But make sure you check the upgrade path, because you can't upgrade, for instance, you can't upgrade from a major version to a patch on the next version. You first need to upgrade to the next major version and then apply the patches. So it's always worth just doing your due diligence and checking the upgrade paths. Again, this information should be available on Cisco documentation. I have put some links towards the end of this presentation as well, so you will be able to navigate to that link and it will give you all the information that you require. Do be aware, traffic flow and inspection interruption is likely, especially if you haven't got clustered or HA environments. So this normally is the case when you're upgrading. You know, when you start to upgrade an FTD appliance, traffic won't be able to flow through that device, and likewise, snort inspection will be interrupted. If you have HA deployments or clustered deployments, we can touch on that in a minute when we get to that point. Do you need to consider upgrading FXOS? So depending on the hardware you are running, you may need to take FXOS upgrades into consideration as well. Now for virtual devices and for, I believe, the Firepower 1000 series, you don't need to take that into consideration because FXOS is bundled with the software. However, for 2100s, 4100s, etc., you will need to take this into consideration. So make sure you do have a look at the compatibility between the FTD or the Firepower versions and the FXOS versions. So back onto clusters and HA deployments. So with HA deployments, you can start the upgrade process while devices are in a HA pair. What will happen is the standby device will upgrade first, and then the active device will then upgrade once the failover has occurred to the secondary device. So in terms of traffic flow, you shouldn't really see any blips. You should be fine. Cluster deployments, you shouldn't see any traffic flow interruption whatsoever. You should be fine with that, given the type of deployment. And lastly, make sure that you have images at the ready. So some of these files are quite large. You know, we're talking about 2+ gig per file. So you know, it's always nice to ensure you have the upgrade files ready before you actually start or before you enter a migration window at least. And what you can actually do is you can download the files from software.cisco.com, and once downloaded you can upload those files into the FMC ready for the upgrade, and we can take a look at that anyway. So now let's jump into the demonstration, and as I say, I'll be upgrading some virtual FTDs and virtual FMC from 6.5 to 6.6. So I just want to point out the location of the files that you will need. So once on software.cisco.com, when we select a product, we select security, and then we go across to firewalls. And then if you're selecting firepower management and it's a virtual device, then we'll need to select Firepower Management Center Virtual Appliance. However, if it's a physical Firepower Management Center, then we'll just select the option above. In this case, what we'll do is we'll just select Firepower Management Virtual Appliance, and then we'll go to Firepower Management Center Software. Once on there, in our case, we're not installing a fresh install, we are simply upgrading. So under 6.6, which is actually the recommended, or 6.6.1 is the recommended version at the moment, and that's the upgrade target we're going to. So we need to first download 6.6.1 as our new recommended version for the FMC. Once we've done the FMC, we also need the images for the FTD. So we'll go back to security, firewalls, and then we'll go to next generation firewalls. And then at the bottom there, if we're using virtual, we'll click Firepower Next Generation Firewall Virtual. If you're using the 1000 series or 2100 series, etc., etc., you'll select those. Quickly, just showing you the difference between the options we have. So let's say we selected the 4110. We can see here we have Firepower Extensible Operating System software. So that goes back to me referring to whether you need to upgrade that software as well or not. However, if we go back now and we click on the virtual, for instance, you can see we don't have the FXOS software option, and that's because it's bundled into the FTD software. So we'll just click FTD software or Firepower Threat Defense software, and we need to make sure that the target version is the same. So again, we'll go to 6.6.1 and we'll also download the upgrade file for that. Once we've done that, we're ready now to upload those images to our FMC and start the upgrade process. So with access to your FMC, navigate to System, Updates, once we reach the Product Updates tab and page, we can see already software or images that we have on the system. So we can see we've already got 6.5, 6.3. These, if you wanted, you can leave if you are thinking of potentially rolling back or would like to have the option to roll back. However, if you know you're not going to need these or downgrade, then I usually get rid of these. Anyway, we can see currently running software version is 6.5.0. Now what we want to do is we want to upload the files that we've just downloaded for the FMC and the FTD. So we'll just click Upload Update. You do have the option as well from the FMC, if your FMC has internet access, to download the updates from the FMC as well. So once we're on the upload update section, we can browse our packages. So I'll just find my packages off screen here. So once all software packages are uploaded, as you can see here, I've got the FTD packages and I've got the FMC packages here. We're now ready to upgrade. So what I will do now is I will upgrade the FMC first. So we can see if we scroll across here, we have the option to install or delete. In our case, we're going to press install. And then we'll be presented with another screen here. And we need to select the FMC. So the FMC we're selecting in this demonstration is FMC V002. And then we have two options. So we can launch a readiness check, or we can go ahead and install straight away. So because this is a lab environment, I'm just going to go ahead and press install. We'll then be presented with the update installation notification. That's basically telling us that the FMC will reboot as part of the upgrade installation. We're just going to go ahead and press OK. Once the install is started, what we'll see is a task notification which will tell us that the update is queued. So we can verify that and watch the task by selecting the tasks up here, or we can actually go to the message center. Now, still going through the upgrade process of the FMC. What you can see now on your screen is when the FMC is rebooted and you log into the FMC, you can still see that the script is still running. So the upgrade is still in process, as you can see. So you just need to wait now until the upgrade process has completed, and you can log back into the FMC. Now, once the upgrade of the FMC is finished, you should now be able to log back in. In this instance, we have a new end user license agreement to agree to. So once you've had a read through that, accept it, and then we should be able to verify the version of code that the FMC is now on. Now when it loads, you should now see a different dashboard, since the UI is a little bit different now. So as you can see here, you can see that the upgrade has succeeded with the task notification. We can see that the UI is different, and in my opinion it looks really nice and clean. And one thing you do need to make sure you do when the FMC is being upgraded is you redeploy any managed device policies that are necessary. So I'm just going to go ahead for this demo and redeploy the policy on the FTD before I begin the update. So as you can see as well, it gives you a notification and tells you that the device requires a full deployment because the sensor was recently upgraded. So we'll just go ahead now and we'll deploy that policy. And now looking at the right side of the screen, we can see that the status shows you the progress. So we can now see it here as well in the deployment field, or we can deployment status field rather, and we can also look at it where we normally look at it, which is in the notification section here. So we can see that it's being deployed, and you can also still look at the tasks to see what stage the deployment's at. And now if we go to our system, and then we go to updates, status is fine. I always just as well check the health status just to make sure that note is points out that shouldn't. Now we can see on the FMC now that we are running 6.6.1, which is good. Now we need to go ahead and we need to upgrade the FTD. So to do that, we'll just go to Cisco FTD upgrade 6.6.1 in my case, and then we'll just go ahead and install. You can choose to push the new image to the device first to stage it, or you can just go ahead and install. Now we need to select the device, so in my case I'm going to check the demo device FTDV001, and then I'm going to go ahead and press install. And again we get the warning that tells us that the system will reboot. In my case, because we're only upgrading one FTD appliance, if there's any traffic that's passing through the device, it will be interrupted. So you go ahead and press OK, and then we have a little notification on the right hand side that pops up and tells us that it's initializing the remote install. So we should be able to track this via tasks as well. So if we click on the little notification, it's just reloaded now anyway, so we can see there basically what I was just showing you. The update is now queued, so just give that a minute and we can click on the notification, and then we should be able to track the progress as we did with the FMC. So if we just have a look at the tasks now, we can see remote install on that particular device is initializing, and now what will happen is the process will carry on through and upgrade the FTD to the new version of code as well. Okay, so once the FTD or FTDs have been upgraded, you now need to redeploy the policies to the managed device as well. So that's what's currently happening on screen right now. You can also verify the version by going to devices and device management. And now if you look at the bottom here, we can see that the version is now 6.6.1. And that's all there is to it. So that's the process of upgrading firepower devices to 6.6 from 6.5. I hope you found that useful. Always check the Cisco documentation for more information. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section, and please like and subscribe if you found this useful. Thank you.